Can Overwatch Esports recapture the magic that once made it great? Overwatch's esports scene had begun freezing over long before the dark esports winter we find ourselves engulfed in, but as winter turns to spring and the Overwatch League turns to the Overwatch Champions Series, Overwatch Esports will need to find its place again, and it would do well to remember where it came from to inform where it is going. What did Overwatch Esports look like? Before the Overwatch League, before all this? The original broadcasts were a combination of some passionate community members throwing together their collective resources to have a sense of professionalism. The result was something in between. It was well produced, but it was much more focused on the game itself. Whether or not that was due to constraints of time or other resources, but it still left an impression. Its consistency housed the best collection of North American talent and was the home, for a time, for Western Overwatch. TakeOver exemplified what Overwatch could be, and it stands as Europe's forgotten gem. Take TV's more relaxed production identity was a perfect fit for Overwatch's audience. Talent and players intermingled in a loose run of the show that breathed an air of relatability. These people were human. They sat next to friends, chatting about something they were passionate about, cracking jokes and playing games. It gave room for talent to present narratives to explore, both for the entertainment of the audience and also for the professional players who would frequent the production. It was a far cry from what the scene would ultimately become. If you've been in Overwatch long enough, you'll remember Apex. Cementing itself as the pinnacle of competitive Overwatch prior to the start of the Overwatch League, OGN's Overwatch Apex took the product to new heights. Capturing player personalities, compelling gameplay and creating dramatic storylines, OGN's Apex wrote and is still the blueprint for how Overwatch can be run successfully. While China continues to work towards returning Blizzard services to the nation, it once was an unsung prospect that housed some of the greatest talent competing today. The Overwatch Premier Series was the biggest event most fans have never heard of. The reason for that likely stemming from that Western coverage produced by Blizzard was a piggybacked production. But it was the sole look into the region's talent pool before the birth of Overwatch Contenders and garnered a cult fan base. And yes, Overwatch Esports was smaller back then. It was more connected, even though it was still attempting to find its audience, but it was affable. Its stories permeated fan bases as dramatics from one region would steal headlines and draw attention and excitement from others, as opposed to the one-stop shop of the Overwatch League. We may then have a good understanding of what Overwatch Esports looked like back in the day, but what did watching it feel like? We'd like to remember competitive Overwatch as heartfelt, grassroots, and filled with rich stories from names of memories past. But no one here is going to lie to you. It is hard to remember what Overwatch felt like prior to the league's start. How do you even look past such enigmatic failure? This is partially because many tournaments slowed to a halt, due to little to no information on the franchise league's limitations to third parties, and the fear that those tournament organisers would be squeezed out of the picture entirely. That said, painting 2024 and beyond in the same light as the past is also futile. Back in 2016, Overwatch was on top of the world. It was in your local supermarket, it was on cereal boxes, it was dominating the viewership on streaming platforms. Overwatch was the belle of the ball. It was the game that all of your friends at the very least had tried and were more than likely trying to get you to play. 2024 will not be that. As popular as Overwatch 2 is, which, despite all the negativity around it, is still absolutely true, we cannot reignite that same novel excitement of a new esports journey. That is just impossible. But what the future does hold is an opportunity to do something Overwatch did naturally in the past: tailor its broadcasts to its home regions. There is no brand that so desperately wants to be the global hub of all things competitive Overwatch. And if one arises, it will be forced to be much, much smaller, and that's for the best. In the past, each region had their own tournaments, with their own production and their own style. Hell, some of them even had their own rule sets, and each fought to be the tournament in the region, and it was metaphorically voted on by how many viewers they got. While it's difficult to paint what that may look like in 2024, it would be silly not to admit that Overwatch fans, depending on the region, want different things. There are, of course, similar ties that bind us, but if Europe is more open to having smaller, regional-based tournaments, what's stopping us now? If North America wants an NCAA single elimination deathmatch, then let there be blood. Much in the same way that the league saw an uptick in narrative depth when the league chose to separate the East and West, the same system can be utilised to greater effect in the coming year. In 2024, Overwatch Esports will have to prove itself again, all while trying to convert some of its Overwatch League folktales to a new audience and reconnect with its roots as an open system esport. Some old familiar faces will definitely re-emerge, and others will leave for good. And hitherto unheard of talent will begin to bloom as the Overwatch Esports winter may finally, mercifully, melt away. The question is, can they recapture the magic that once made Overwatch Esports great? Thanks for watching. What do you make of the Overwatch Champions series? Can it bring back the best days of Overwatch Esports? Or is the esports winter here to stay for a little bit longer? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments, and while we've got you here with us at GGRecon, you should check out these videos here.